the Middle-Aged Bodcast. Getting older, but having some laughs.
Welcome to the Middle-Aged Podcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shalano.
And T.A., it is 2026. It is season 6 of the Middle-Aged Podcast.
Season 6. I don't believe we're at season 6. This should never have got past season 2.
You keep making that joke, T.A., but at some point you're going to make that joke and people are going to start listening to you, so you've got to stop saying that.
If we carry on like this, we'll be like Ian Hislop and Paul Merton on season 88 of like, Have I Got News For You? We'll be sat here and we'll be like too old for the Middle-Aged Podcast doing this.
Well, you're saying we should have seasons be yearly or something, because that would be like, there'd be no breakup of anything. We'd just be going continuously. We'd never stop.
But, well, granted, we are in 2026. And obviously this is February now, so we're into 2026 a little bit. But this is our first recording. We've been having our winter break, haven't we, Rich? I know they've been trying to put it in football for a while. Well, we have our own winter break. We needed that, and we've obviously been giving you some reposts and some best ofs to get you through the difficult January blues. But yeah, here we are with a first episode, season 6. What are your reflections back on the end of 2025, Rich?
I think we had a really good 2025 overall. I think for the podcast, certainly. Things we never expected to happen in terms of some of the guests that we got. Certainly in terms of some of the events that we went to. Obviously it was earlier in 2025, but we went to Uni Podfest. That was brilliant. And sort of moving sort of forward then towards the end of 2025, just getting that sort of big bumper, season 4, season 5, both of those through, getting to speak to some truly brilliant guests, that again, we never probably would have spoken to or interacted with had we not been doing this. So yeah, it's been a really nice close out to 2025 as well. Got to spend Christmas and New Year with Ruth, which was brilliant. And yeah, 2025's been a good year. It's one to look back on positively for the most part. I think a few blips along the way, but yeah, not too bad. How about yourself?
Well, I know we're obviously reflecting on 2025, and so to some degree, can I take us back to New Year's Eve 2024? Bear with me. In our New Year's Eve episode, which was the season 2 finale, I said I'd seen this thing on social media about you should write something down positive that happens every week, throw it in a biscuit tin or something like that. And then at the end of the year, you look back and have a look at what a wonderful year that you had. Well, I am pleased to be able to confirm, because this is my first opportunity to do so on the podcast, that Mrs. Shalano and I did complete our 2025 weekly reflections. And on New Year's Eve 2025, we went through them all. And I think there was a bit of misunderstanding between Mrs. Shalano and I on this task, Rich, because it's meant to be like a short, sharp, positive thing that's happened. So, you know, whatever you've been doing that's really great, you've been to a great show, you've been on holiday, you know, bang. Many of Mrs. Shalano's were like War and Peace, you know, about what she'd been doing. It's like, you know, we don't need to know you had a lasagna on a Tuesday. That's not a highlight, you know, just get to the point. And so to try and put that right, we've started it again, would you believe? And we're actually doing it for 2026. But what I would say about that particular exercise is it was actually a brilliant thing to do on New Year's Eve, to be able to sit there and go, right, let's go back, because you forget certain things as well, especially earlier in the year. You forget sometimes, well, what you might have written at a given time, and it just sparks a memory of things. So I really enjoyed actually doing that. And I think sometimes we get bogged down in day-to-day life and that things, you know, aren't always that great. But it's amazing when you do look back at 52 pieces of paper and go, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, what a great show. Oh, do you remember that? Do you know what I mean? And it was actually quite a positive thing where you might sometimes sit at the end of the year and go, oh, that wasn't a great year. When you actually get to go kind of through it in that way, and granted you are only looking at the highlights as such, but you do have more highlights than perhaps you realise. And you forget almost, and we become a little bit focus on the negatives sometimes. But actually, if you do something like this, you get to actually look back and say, actually, that's that we did so many different things on, last year, looking back and going, I probably finished writing another book and put that out, all the stuff we did on the podcast, all the trips, the shows, the different things that you've been to do. And, you don't do that really in the same way, do you? If you don't, it's record.
It's interesting you saying that, because I read something quite recently. I actually read it a while ago and seen it again recently. Your brain remembers the negative stuff more than the positive. It's a strange thing. I can't fully remember it because I haven't got it to hand, but it remembers the bad stuff that you sort of have rather than the good for a longer period of time. And I think having that actual record, like you say, lets you remember that good stuff. It gives you that reason for going, oh, this is a good thing that I did. And you could have completely forgotten that you did something at that time of the year, especially earlier on in like the January or February of 2025. You kind of likely to forget exactly what you were looking into.
I think that plays into as well that scenario where they say if you have a negative experience of something, you tell more people than when you've had a positive experience of something.
Yeah.
And that people are more likely to put on, a negative review of something than a positive one sometimes. That's in our nature, it's inclined to, like you say, veer towards something as more negative than it was, unless you're looking back at it through a different lens, which that does do. And I would recommend it actually as a thing to do. So I quite enjoyed that. So yeah, I recommend what you need to do, Rich, is go back, do the last few weeks, and get you and Rip doing one for 2026. You just have to remember what you were doing a few weeks ago and make a start on one.
That might be the way. Yeah. Probably starting it off with watching the last Mission Impossible movie or something like that, because that was one of the things. But yeah, that's a good shout, and certainly something I think that we could be looking into doing, because yeah, it's good to look back on the good stuff, on the positives, like you say. And I suppose it's like going through your like your photos on your phone when you get like the little highlight things that they show you, or even with the podcasting, you get, on Spotify, you get your Wrapped for the year, and you get like all the stuff you've been listening to and all that kind of information. And you kind of go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize I'd listened to that so much. Or, and then it kind of tells you when it was you were listening to certain things. It's good to look back on the year positively. And I think, there were a few negatives obviously last year, but for the most part, it was a pretty good year, I think.
Well, there's two reflections on that. Sometimes do you always want to see a reflection back? I remember Mrs. Shalano got a thing through a supermarket that won't be named here, through the point system, that we'd purchased the third highest number of a certain brand of milkshake at that branch that year. I'm not sure we want to know that. The other thing is, I know you've taken the tech angle of this, where we're now prompted by stuff. It's throwing it back at 8 years ago, you were doing this, 7 years ago, you're doing this, and on this day. Whereas I'm back in the old world of, I've been writing stuff on pen and paper in a biscuit tin. I just can't join you in this newfangled world.
Well, you say that about the tech, but we did obviously repost physical media versus streaming earlier this year. And I do have my take on that. But I do think with the tech, it's finding the good and bad in there, isn't it? Because there is a lot of bad that kind of it has effect on you, the doom scrolling and all that kind of stuff. But actually, there's a lot of positives you can take from it as well. And I think that's what we need to try and do more of, is actually taking stock of what we're doing and saying, there are some things that it does give you highlights for and good kind of memories and information for it. And it's using it for that.
I mean, completely on that thing, we should probably put something in each week. We think it's a highlight that actually, we'd want to talk about on the show from a podcast point of view, actually, like something that we've done should be in there. So you might have an overarching highlight of something else, but maybe there's a sub highlight of, something you've cooked this week, something you've done exercises, something you know what I mean? We could do that and do some sort of informed reflection. But
well, it'll be no surprise to the listeners that there's probably not been a lot of exercise from me, but there has been a bit of cooking, and I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later.
But it's another opportunity this year, this season, or the seasons that are coming up, to try new things again, try old things that you might want to try again. I think it's probably been a difficult start for a lot of people, isn't it? That kind of post Christmas into January is always a little bit. That's the old joke about Christmas time is full of people in places, out for drinks that never go out, and joining the rest of people. And then January is full of people going to the gym who never go to the gym February to December. So it's breaking through some of that as well, isn't it? Going into when you start a new year.
Yeah, I think it is. And obviously we're going to get a little bit more into things that we've got coming up, but you mentioned that there. I don't know about you, Tia. I'm finding, but the winter nights, they are a bit, you do get a bit down actually from them. And I was thinking about this because it sort of starts for me around probably October, November, like end of October, start of November. You start to just see the dark nights really like drawing in a lot quicker, and you're just going, oh no, it starts to get colder. And you get to the end of November, sort of middle, end of November, when Christmas lights go up, and suddenly you're really positive again because you see people's decorations out and you're going, oh, they're really nice. That's great. I need to get my decorations up. And then you get to January, you take everything down. It's gotten even colder. It's wet. It's dark. Sometimes you get the snow as well. And that causes you loads of more chaos. And it's just non-stop then until you get the lighter nights coming back through.
Well, that's it. I think the only dark nights you like, Rich, involve Batman.
I knew that was coming.
Well, it was about time I put in a superhero reference rather than you.
Says the man who calls himself Batman in an episode previously. I mean, come on.
That's back in 2025. That's back in 2025. So harsh, so harsh. You're right though, but we've got just a few weeks and those clocks will be going forward and we'll be into spring. So we're certainly nearly there, in that sense. I think, I don't know about you, but in terms of just getting going has been a little bit hard. Actually, I had a cold over Christmas that sort of dragged on a little bit. So then coming into January, you find it that little bit just trying to get yourself, as you say, through that darkness and cold and get back into the swing of things with your different things. I mean, like for me on the exercise, was trying to get back, having had that illness and stuff like that. And, and obviously we have a bit of excess, don't you, over Christmas? You just don't avoid it entirely despite our best efforts.
I'd love to know about Christmas, how much shortbread manufacturers must get, because there's so much of that that gets given to people over Christmas, and they run out of date very quickly, I've noticed as well. So I don't know how long they're in the shops for, but yeah.
Or just generally tin makers.
Well,
suddenly there's thousands of tins of things that aren't terribly good for you, that you tend to see much more of at that time of year than any other. But I think it's setting the scene now, isn't it, really, for us in terms of going forward with the rest of the year. We've got, sort of planning 3 seasons for you in 2026.
So we've decided, I think based upon last year, that worked quite well for us. So we're going to do it again. Looking to have a bit more of a focus as well, I think, on where we're going with the sort of theming of things, and trying to take some of maybe the pop culture side of things that we've had in the past into sort of bonus episodes, and sticking with those podcast themes that we've had going forward throughout the in-season episodes. But yeah,
I think it'd be good as well to see an evolution then for us from here we are at the beginning of season 6 towards the end of like a season 8, and where we go along the way with that, and perhaps make more tangible progress. We've kind of made some progress, then there's setbacks, on different things, whether it's been, health, exercise, cooking stuff, all those different things. Let's see what progress that we can kind of, do more tangible look back. I think over time would be quite a good reflection. But perhaps to do that, we really need to make sure we've got some ambitions that we can sort of measure impact against. And so, Rich, what are your ambitions to achieve in 2026 by the end of season 8?
Well, I think we've established that the cooking has been my thing that's taken off really unexpectedly as well. I think it's time to start doing some other things, a bit of baking maybe some desserts, maybe some, I don't know. So I want to just try and do a lot more with the cooking. I want to try and expand upon my repertoire a little bit more. I think definitely there will be something to do with the health side of things. And one thing I do want to say, and I do want to try and sort of put out there, and whether or not it happens this year or it maybe does end up going into the new year, is obviously looking at driving again. I know it's not very much of a podcast thing, but just more for sort of, I think, me being able to get about and do the things that I'd like to be able to do a bit more with a bit more independence in that way. But also, I've actually owned my house at the end of this year for 20 years. And so there's a few things I want to do with the house. I've done things over the years, obviously, but there's a few projects I want to complete. And actually, my dad said to me a few years ago, you want to make a document. You want to have this document that you put everything that you've done on there so you remember, and you've got a log of it. And once you've done it, you can tick it all off. And you mentioning the jar from last year and doing that again, I've actually done another document because I found the original document that I'd forgotten about, and I'd actually done a lot more than I'd thought that was on there. Like there was like, I'll replace a window in one of the rooms. I ended up replacing all my windows a couple of years ago. So yeah, done myself another new document and some plans for the year on there. Some sort of decorative stuff, but also stuff away from doing for the house. But yeah, that's kind of my ambitions and plans. As a bit, I know a bit vague at the moment, but certainly going to flesh those out as the year goes on.
Well, I'm going to make sure those ambitions are at least listed in a way that we can measure. So on the cooking, the aim by the end of the year is he will release his cookbook, Baking Bad. Don't sue us, please, for that, Vince Gilligan. And then obviously he'll sell loads of copies of that, and having passed his driving test, he'll be able to buy himself a really nice car and go on a sort of a road trip. So it'd be Ruth and Rich on the road. So that'll be the next one there. And then in his house, he can do a load of work to convert this into a full podcasting studio. and then just have a little bit of it is actually his house. Or maybe just, hopefully, you'll sell that many cookbooks. You can buy another house and this will just be a podcasting studio.
Oh, well.
So there we go. So those are the big kind of big hitters. You've gone for different things there as well. So you've kind of gone for like, right, I'm going to try and do something around, obviously that's, there's something that's really been a theme for you through the podcast, which is the cooking. The driving obviously is something that you've not done for a while in terms of trying.
I haven't sat behind the wheel of a car for 20 years. That's mad.
Wow. Okay.
That's really mad.
So hang on a minute. So you've almost owned this house as long as since you last sat behind the wheel of a car then?
I've owned this house probably, it's probably been longer actually, since not driving since having this house. But yeah, I mean, I was learning to drive when we first met. Wow. So there you go. That's been nearly 25 years.
Goodness, mate. Yes, well, it actually is 25 years this year, yeah. I think. Oh, dear me. But we'll get those ambitions listed down.
Yeah.
And then I suppose from my point of view, I am obviously working on a third book. I'm not going to say that will be finished by the end of this year because, to be brutally honest, there is quite a lot of work to do. It's a prequel. There's a lot of research on this one compared to perhaps the other two, certainly the second one. So I'm going to need some more time. So I'm not setting that as an ambition, but I am setting it as something where I want to have obviously made significant progress on the third book. I think that's a fair thing to say. I would like to, again, rebuild some of that consistency and exercise that I was doing quite well for periods of 2025. And then it's kind of, as winter's hit and Christmas, it's kind of drifted back and it's just been picking that back up again early this year. So I'd like to get a much more consistent focus there. And maybe one of my actual genuine sort of measurables as an ambition, Mitch, would be to try and get into a lowered like jean size or something. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. I can, by the end of season 8, do that. That would be a good podcast ambition. On the homeware section as such, Mrs. Schleiner and I are planning a few home improvements as well. So there is that. But yeah, so I think that's so you're going to get out Baking Bad, the cookbook, and
Don't set these standards that high.
and I'm going to go for my Fatness to Fitness app, developed by you.
That's exactly where I was going.
And that'll be that'll be what we'll do as sort of ambitions. Yeah, I think that kind of works well.
Well, I suppose, TA, based upon those ambitions, we have been talking about something that we've wanted to do. We started talking about it just towards the end of last year.
That's right, Rich. We have agreed to do a charity walk. I caveat that may not take place during this season, so you may not hear the final reflections of that before season 7, but we'll no doubt be talking about plans and preparations for the walk. Do you want to introduce what we're doing, Rich?
Yeah, so we did mention last season that I have been attending Andy's Man Club, which is an absolutely phenomenal charity for men's mental health. It's sort of turned into a men's peer-to-peer support group, really. Now, the statistic is that in the UK, suicide is the single largest cause of death for men under the age of 50, and nearly 12 men lose their lives to suicide every day. Approximately 4,200 suicides each year. That is in the UK. And in England and Wales, men die by suicide at a rate 3 times more often than women. So, taking this into account with myself attending Andy's Man Club and us wanting to do something to raise some money, we're going to be taking a 12-mile walk to reference the 12 men who lose their lives to suicide every day. And we are going to be raising some money for Andy's Man Club. So we've spoken about this. We are still putting together a few logistics for it, which is why TA said that we're probably not going to have this done during this particular season. But we have looked into it, and I think the aim is to try and do something where we'll go on this walk, and potentially I think we were saying we would end the walk at Villa Park. Obviously, you're an Aston Villa fan. It's going to be something that we are preparing for over the next few months. We're going to be bringing you some updates on that. And yeah, just something that we wanted to do to try and raise some awareness and also raise some money for charity as well.
I think the other thing about that, Rich, is it will give us an opportunity to, to follow on a little bit of fitness, because we will need to do a bit of preparation, which we can talk about. And actually that sort of brings in, in something that's achievable as well.
Yeah.
As we often talk about, doing different things, and sometimes, you set goals that we can achieve and ones that we can't, but actually building up to something, like a 12-mile walk, you and I do different levels of, I suppose, of fitness things, but we don't normally do walks like that. So I suppose that's something else we need to, take into consideration. But it's something that we can do, and I think will be a real positive thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's going to help with mental health as well. I think quite a lot. A sense of achievement at the end of it, certainly, and hopefully, we're not going to be here saying, hey, please donate to our listeners and things like that. If you want to, that would be absolutely phenomenal, but we're not going to be pushing that. This is about us doing something for ourselves, and also, as we say, to raise awareness for a cause that, I've gotten a lot from Andy's Man Club in the few short months that I've been attending. I think for nearly 6 months now I've been going, and they're an absolutely fantastic support network for men who are struggling, and like many other of those sort of support groups and things, charities and things like that out there, they need the help, they need funding, and so yeah, any kind of support they can have is always greatly received, and so that is kind of why we've chosen to go for them, and yeah, just
I think also it'd be good to obviously get out of the studio.
Yeah.
Obviously we're often sat here, doing this, isn't an active thing in the physical sense. So I think that'll be good as well. We haven't really mentioned it as yet, but I know we are going to be bringing weigh-ins back, but not in a challenging sense. It's going to be much more of, we're not in competition. It is, again, showing a progress through. We won't be doing that every single week. We will be doing it on a much more regular basis like we did back in some of our earlier seasons. And again, this will be another way of measuring, sort of health, fitness and goals as part of that. So I think that's where we've also come to in terms of the evolution of doing this is also that, isn't it, Rich, in terms of taking forward some of the things that sort of sit under the Middle Age Podcast really in a more formal sense, of which I think this would be a starting point for one to do.
I think so. Yeah, we're trying to do a little bit more, what do I call it, podcast on brand sort of stuff, and trying to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable as well for when there are things that don't go so well. And I know we've spoken in the past about my attempts at health and fitness, and this is something very achievable. This is something that we can achieve. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to sort of take the podcast in the direction we wanted to originally, and we probably veered off a little bit. And I think, we've done some great stuff over the last sort of 12 months and a little bit more, but it's time to get back on brand and, like we say, move some of the other content into bonuses and things. So yeah, we're going to be holding ourselves accountable for more stuff. Certainly going to be a lot more probably progress, I think, on the sort of core elements of health and well-being, mental health and sort of self-improvement, the cooking, the DIY, all that kind of stuff. We're still going to have the occasional crazy story, I'm sure, about some of the things that have happened. There'll probably be more talk about internet routers shaped like Darth Vader's helmet, or the flat lager, or the coffee shop app that didn't work, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're going to be trying to bring a little bit more on our progress as well with what we're doing, because we do feel like we've probably not progressed as much as we would have liked to have, sort of from when we initially started the podcast.
I think that's a fair reflection of where we've got to. And I think that's a good thing to do in terms of when you're looking at progress and all the different things over the seasons and the things we've been doing. It's all a learning curve, which is part of it. And we all remain a work in progress and everything that we're doing. And it is that accountability and taking that to the next level is obviously what we're trying to do around some of those goals. I may not get Rich into Sean T, but I'm going to get him in them walking boots, and we'll get that 12 miles walked.
Yes, we will do indeed, and we have been planning out the route a little bit, like I say, and we are still thinking about some things, but we will bring you some updates on that as the season goes forward. We are going to be bringing you some guests again as well. We've got some guests lined up for this season, some interesting stories to tell, and also a few things planned, hopefully, that will be us telling you the usual sort of podcast stories, and probably TA telling me I ought to stop ordering so many takeaways. But yeah,
I actually think that's an area that you have improved. I think you do order less takeaways.
I think so, yeah.
I think you do. I think you book more
the
cooking now than
stuff.
Ever.
The cooking stuff, to be honest, has been the thing I've really took away from this. And I will say this, because we brought it up actually just before we close out the episode. We brought it up towards the end of last season. Do you remember the Hunter's chicken pie that I was going to cook?
Mm-hmm.
Because it did not happen.
Okay.
What happened instead was the Hunter's chicken loaded mash bowls. So I do believe we put something on the socials for that, but I will have a little bit of a look at that, and if not, we will post that up for people to see the cooking exploits that did take place. And I've already done my first slow cooker chili con carne of the year. So yeah, the cooking.
You've unfortunately reminded me of something that I'm going to have to bring up.
Oh no!
And add to your ambitions.
If this is steak and chips again,
You don't even know what it is that you haven't cooked it yet for me and Mr. Shalano. 2026 needs
I'm
to
going
see
to
us.
buy a steak and I'm going to hit you around the head with it.
Cook it, us. You can do it. I think that's the next stage in progress is you actually doing a meal for like more than two.
You just want me to cook for you and Mrs. Shalano. That's what it is.
What do you mean? Well, why not? Well, why not? That's a good thing to
I've
do.
already done it.
Not the steak and chips. Anyway. There may not be steak and chips, or there may be. We don't know. But we will be bringing you the progress as we go on. So, yeah, stick with us and we will see you soon.
Yes, we will be back next week and really looking forward to season 6 continuing. Thank you very much.
Want more middle-aged podcast in your life? Of course you do. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes stuff, extra larks, and all our latest updates. We're on Instagram and Threads at Midaged Podcast. Facebook's easier. Just head to facebook.com/middleaged podcast. If you're still hanging on to Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, we're at Midaged Podcast. And if you're on Blue Sky, it's at middleagedpodcast.bsky.social. Or you can swing by our website, middleagedpodcast.co.uk. Give us a follow and stay in the loop. Cheers for listening.